Hi, this is Jan with Jan's Jewelry Supplies. Welcome to another soldering video. Today I'm going to show you how to make a large necklace that will look like a solid piece but will actually have some movement. It has some hidden connections in the back. I've already soldered the 5 parts of this necklace. When you lay out your design, you want to treat it like one piece, but just make sure not to solder where you want your connections. Now here's a view of the back of the necklace after it's been soldered. You can see where the connections are. I've laid my 5 pieces out in some Play-Doh, and basically I'm treating it as though it were one piece, and I'm going to go in and make some connections. So I have something to connect to. I'm going to be using these Shanks, also referred to as up eyes. These are the ones I'll be using. And then there is also this one. The first one I find easier to use. I'm going to begin laying down solder where I want the Shanks. Basically, they're going to be across from each other at a slight angle, and the angle will go up towards the outside of the necklace. Depending on your design, you may want them directly across from each other, but since this necklace does have a curve, you want to go slightly up. Basically, you're going to be going around the curve of your neck. Once I've laid down the solder where I want the Shanks, then I'll go back and add the Shanks. Putting 2 Shanks on each connection. That's 2 on each side. And then at the very tip, I will be adding 1 Shank to connect to the strand. I just lay the Shanks down on top of the solder and reheat. Now that I've finished soldering the shanks, I'm going to go ahead and work on the chain. And for the chain, I've used about 7.5 inches of the Fuchsia 17SS chain and about 7.75 inch of the 24 pp or 12SS Capri blue. You're going to want the one that is the slightly longer one towards the outer edge, and that the Fuchsia should be on the outer edge because of the curve of the necklace. It's going to take just a little bit more length to make that curve. I'm just going to take the two pieces and lay them out. I'm just going to lay the Fuchsia chain and the Capri chain together and lay them out to where the ends are even. Now that I have the ends even, I am going to solder the two pieces together. Okay, now that I have them soldered together, I am going to take these little clasp connectors. These are for using a fold-over clasp. They have a little indentation in them, and I am going to lay some solder in that indentation. I added a little bit of extra solder so that I can place the shank there and just apply heat and get it to solder to the chain. So I'm just laying down my shanks. Now on the other side, I'm going to take my clasp connectors and put them in place. And you're going to want to make sure that your outer edge of your chain, where it connects to the necklace, that the outer edge is a little bit longer than the inside chain. Now that I have everything in place, I'm going to go ahead and apply some heat. You may need to take your pliers to make sure that the connector is flat against the chain. Now that I have all of my parts soldered, I'm going to begin connecting my pieces together. And I am using 12 4.5 millimeter jump rings. of which 8 are closed and 4 are open. And I'm going to be using 18 6.2 millimeter jump rings, of which 2 are closed and 16 are open. I've already connected the one side. For this first section, I just use the 6.2 millimeter jump ring and run the 4.5 millimeter jump ring through it, and then run that 6 millimeter jump ring through the shank, and then just close it. Then you'll take another 6 millimeter jump ring and run it through the 3 millimeter and attach it to the other side. You do the same thing at the top. Just going to do a 6 millimeter, attach it to the 4.5 millimeter, run it through the shank on one side and close it up. And take an open 6 millimeter jump ring, run it through the 3 millimeter, or run it through the shank, close it, you can take this one and run it through the 4.5 millimeter, and then you're just going to run it through the shank on the other side. Do the same thing as you did on the other one. You're going to just use a 6 millimeter at the top with your 4.5 millimeter, and you will connect it with a 6 millimeter. I'll just close it up. Okay, on this bottom part of this next section, I actually used 3 6 millimeter jump rings just so it would lay properly. And this is really going to be determined by where you soldered your shanks. You may have to play with it a little bit to see exactly what length you need in your jump rings. And you really need to have an odd number. You know, I'm using 3 on all of these, and I'm just adjusted the size of the jump rings on this bottom section. But for it to lay properly, you need 3. I originally tried using all 6 millimeter jump rings, and I was seeing jump rings between the sections, and that's not what I wanted. That done, and I'm going to attach the chain to the end of the centerpiece, and I'm going to use 3 of the 4.5 millimeter jump rings here. I just found that I was seeing too much jump ring if I used the 6 millimeters. So I'm using an open one to attach to the shank, and I'm attaching the open one to a 4.5, and I'm closing it, and then I'm going to run another 4.5 through the closed jump rings, and just attach it to the chain. You may have to play with this a little bit to make sure that the chain is following the way you want it to, and that make sure it's not twisted. Okay, all I have left to do is to attach the fold over clasp. I usually attach it to the right hand side, and you just open up your loop a little bit. There's a little loop on the fold over clasp. You just open it up a little bit and place that loop inside the square of the connector, and then you'll just take your pliers and fold that loop down, and you can test your clasp to see whether or not it's closing properly. If it doesn't close properly, you may need to adjust it a little bit. And this one, I'm going to open it up and bend it in a little bit more. And it's folding. It's closing well now. Just attach it to the other side and fold down your clasp. And that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.